Hey guys, it's Chelsa Messenger with Picks in Parlays. We're talking college football, Indiana at Wisconsin. College basketball is finally back and we've got a promo code. The code is BALL for 15% off the entire site at picksandparlays.net. The Badgers favored minus 14.5. The total is now down to 46 with the news that Indiana starting quarterback Michael Penix Jr. is now out for the season with a torn ACL, I believe. Terrible news for Indiana. Because it's been a great stretch for the Hoosiers. Actually, really good against the number. I believe they're undefeated against the spread, 6-0 against the spread, 5-1 on the year. And this one would have been a good game if it wasn't for that news. But now we have that news, so we're handicapping it as is. We've got Nick from the Insiders Room to break it all down. Nick, how does this change the way you look at this spread and the way you look at these two teams?
Originally when I woke up this morning, I was looking at this game, I was breaking it down, and I really did like Indiana, even though it was 6-0 against the spread. I usually like to go against those types of lopsided numbers and trends, but I thought this one set up well for it. And then, of course, the news came out of Penix Jr. being injured, and so that threw my Indiana play out the window. And so for this one, I'm just going to use some common sense here, Chelsa. I just think that the under is the sharp wager. Of course, that has come down, as you mentioned, since the news of Penix Jr. But I still think that's the way to go. It's a huge blow to Hoosiers fans here, especially to this pass-happy offense. And because of this, yeah, I do like the under. The line opened at 50.5. It's dropped about a field goal at most places. Indiana, it has a strong running game anyways. Tim Baldwin, he had 16 carries for 106 yards in last week's win over Maryland. And Stevie Scott, he had 80 yards on 24 carries and 3 touchdowns. And so obviously the Hoosiers are going to be leaning heavily on these two guys in this game. Wisconsin, it won its first 2 games in dominating fashion. It beat Illinois 45-7, and then Michigan 49-11. But the offense fell flat against Northwestern. It eventually lost 17-7. But yeah, the Badgers, they've been solid defensively overall. They've allowed just 35 total points in 3 games. And so now they face an Indiana offense that's going to be completely out of sorts without Penix Jr. back there. They're having to just make stuff up on the fly here, basically. Wisconsin quarterback Graham Mertz, he looked bad really last week in the loss to Northwestern. He had just 230 yards passing and 3 interceptions. Both teams, they played to some higher scoring games, Chelsea, but I think that the circumstances today, it all points to this one falling under the number once it's all said and done.
Yeah, and Indiana also has some other injuries. They're starting running back, Stevie Scott III, also questionable as of taping this one. So then you've got sophomore quarterback Jack Tuttle, who's expected to take the reins quarterback. And we've seen it in the NFL. Sometimes the play calling is going to be a lot more conservative when you have a guy that has not run the offense. And I think that's probably the case here. He does have a few snaps, under center filling in, but I just don't think it's going to be the dynamic offense that we saw with Michael Penix Jr. My goodness, some of the numbers he was putting up, 1,600 yards of passing, or 1,600 yards, 14 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions through 6 games. So he's going to be a big hole for this Indiana team. And we've seen in college football how big of a difference some of these quarterbacks can make when it comes to the talent level on some of these teams. And another thing that stands out to me, when you have a total that's pretty low, and then you have a spread that, it's over 2 touchdowns, 14.5. If Indiana wasn't down so many people, I'd be tempted to take Indiana here just because the total's so low. Any other thoughts when it comes to the spread?
I guess I would have to lean towards Wisconsin now, only because I can't see how you take Penix Jr. out of this offense and Indiana have any sort of chemistry whatsoever. It's asking a lot in these weird COVID times. And so, yeah, I just think Wisconsin's is rested. It's at home. And so if I was going to lean on the side, I would take Wisconsin here to take advantage of this situation. But as I say, definitely my strongest play on this one now is the under.
Yeah, and that line has been going down quickly, so jump on that soon if you like it. And also, only 2 games left on the schedule for Wisconsin, so if they want to prove anything to anyone, granted, they already have a loss on the schedule, so their playoff hopes might be dashed. They're all playing for something when the sample size is so small. They've really got to prove things to people. So I don't think there's going to be a lack of motivation from probably either team. But that's going to do it for our college football talk here on Picks and Parlays. As always, great insight from Nick from the Insiders Room. Nick, thanks for joining us.